Pixel Therapy is a member of the But Why Though podcast network.
Go to butwhythoughpodcast.com for an inclusive geek community offering pop culture news, reviews, and podcasts.
I just want to start by saying, thank you. Thanks for hitting download. Thanks for hitting download 50,000 times. Holy shit.
To the one person who hit download 50,000 times, we're really grateful to you, our one listener.
Welcome to Pixel Therapy, the video game podcast where we look at the games we play through the lens of the player, where what you play is just as important as how you play it, and where emotional intelligence is a critical stat. Every other week, we bring on a guest who may or may not consider themselves a gamer to discuss the games that have made them and changed them and all the feelings they have about our favorite pastime. I'm your co-host, Jamie, pronounced she, her.
And I'm your co-host, Spencer, pronounced they, them.
And this is Pixel Therapy. Remember, if you're a fan of Pixel Therapy, there are several ways you can help support the show, and the most generous of those ways is to come on over to patreon.com/pixeltherapypod and subscribe for just $2 a month. Your subscription not only goes to support the work we do here on the podcast, but it unlocks a monthly bonus episode that we call Co-op Mode. That's just Spencer and I chatting it up about games, life, and whatever else tickles our fancies. And we'd love to have you join us over there. But if Patreon's not in the cards for you, that is also okay. And you can rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or your podcast platform of choice, because that sort of thing does have a real impact. And if we like what you write, we may just have to read it on the show sometime. All right. It's time to get cozy. Pull up an armchair. Feel free to lie down on your couch or your floor or your bed.
One of those.
or
your hammock.
In a recliner. Ooh, a hammock. Yeah.
Or lay in your pool and float into the middle of it.
But then how are you listening to the podcast if you're floating in your pool?
You're just blasting it out of your in-home speakers so that the whole block can enjoy.
Wow. All right. Yeah, so do that if you want. But it's time to get cozy, and we're going to talk about some feelings. Spencer, how you doing?
I'm well. It's quite crisp out here today.
It is. Fall is, I want an F word that fall could be doing.
Fall has flung.
Flung. All right, we'll workshop it. I'm not sold on fall has flung.
Fall has fucked right off.
Whoa, no, we like fall. I like fall.
Fucked in. Fall fucks.
Fall does
if someone
fuck.
Fucks, that's good.
Yeah, that's good.
As opposed to being fucked, which is bad.
Yeah, don't
but
be fucked.
Also could be good, depending on...
Well, yeah. Depends on what you're looking for. But fall fucks. Yeah, I'm good with fall fucks.
Great, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just loving the colors. I'm loving getting up and having an excuse to fire up a wood stove. Like I've been burning logs, and that's been really nice. Love the smell.
Sounds like a euphemism.
I know it does. No, I just like to watch flames licking up the side of a curling wood log. There's no way to talk about this. It doesn't sound weird, but
so apparently fire fucks too.
Yeah, fire does fuck.
It does fuck.
I mean, listen, the hottest thing about this is a random aside, but Howl's Moving Castle. One of the hottest things about Howl is that he has a sentient fire buddy. Like
Calcifer, right?
Yeah, Calcifer.
Yeah. Except in the English translated version, Calcifer is voiced by Billy Crystal. Not the sexiest voice.
I don't know what you're talking about. He's the epitome of sex appeal.
You're right. I'm sorry. No shade to Billy Crystal fans all over the world. If Billy Crystal does it for you, please lean into that. Yeah. I support you. Just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, I mean, looking at my YouTube history, it's all of my videos have been 6 hours of falling asleep in Howl Pendragon's living room. And it's the sound of a crackling fire while Miyazaki piano plays on repeat. Yes. And that's how I get through my work days lately.
Honestly, that sounds wonderful. I really love the fire, just the videos, the long hours long videos of the fireplace. Because our house doesn't have a wood burning stove or a fireplace. But yeah, when it's cooler outside, putting the fire up on the screen and just listening to it crackle. It's not
Feels
bad.
good,
it's not
man.
a bad thing. Yeah.
I think the last time you had a New Year's party, you slapped that log on the screen and we had a lovely evening. It felt warm. I don't know, something about it. It's just instant ambiance.
Yeah, it is. And
we should start playing a crackling fire in the background of our episodes.
Oh my God. Make them like real fireside
real cozy
chats. Yeah.
Cozy vibes. Yeah. Tell me about you. How are you this weekend?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Bought a car. We talked about this a bit on our last Patreon episode. But I officially have the car now. And it's at home. I drove it for several miles and
no one
didn't
died.
get in any accidents. Nobody died. Knock on wood. Now this is I haven't owned a car in over a decade, and I haven't driven more than a few times a year in over a decade. So it's big, but with our new home, got to get the car to be able to get around in the area that we live in now. It's just not as conducive to public transit and walking as the previous areas that we lived in. It's a little bit more rural. So
I wish video games kind of set this unrealistic standard that you can truly walk anywhere and never get tired. And that walking is like a really restorative. Like I feel like so many games, as you're walking, you're healing and gaining health. I feel like when I walk, it's like slowly I'm losing 1 HP point every 10 steps.
the thigh chafing. It's just...
and the sweating. And then your feet hurt. It's just like not realistic. Can we work on that, please?
Yeah. No, well, I mean, just a couple weeks ago, we started going back into the office. So I was like trying my commute for the first time. And on the one hand, like, it's really nice to be like out walking around doing the commute again. Like there were aspects of that was really nice, but it was also like, I realized like midway through the day, I was like, I have been more mobile today in this like 4 hours than I've probably been for the entire year of the pandemic. I used to walk all around the city of Boston, had some great calluses on my feet, all built up.
So
those
strong.
are gone. I like my feet like immediately blistered. They were like, no, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, Jesus, got to get these calluses built back up.
I'm used to being the barefoot Contessa here at home. What's this going outside and wearing shoes business? I forget how to match shoes to my outfit. What's that mean?
Oh, God. Yeah, I don't even know. I had to buy like all new clothes. Just haven't clothes shopped in almost 2 years.
Yeah, I'm just ordering everything online now. I've decided that going into a fitting room is a trigger. And so I'm strictly measuring myself and then ordering things online. Actually, Jamie, you just turned me on to Dapper Boy. I just ordered some pants from them and I can't wait to have masculine shaped pants that fit my hip to waist ratio. I
love that. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
So excited for you.
You know what? Commutes, someone needs to invent a real, a steed that comes to you no matter where you are. You press a button or you whistle and a steed comes out of nowhere and is ready for you to ride.
By steed, you mean a horse, right? Like you want a horse?
But like, I feel bad about riding what if my horse doesn't want to go into Boston? Like I want like a mechanical horse or something, like an AI horse that I don't have to feel bad about making his hooves go on the concrete.
Yeah, that's true. And then there's a lot of upkeep for a horse that the games kind of gloss over, right?
A lot.
In a video game, the horse just like takes care of itself. It's feeding itself. It's doing what it needs to do. If it's sleeping, that's on the horse. In real life, I've heard that they require a lot of effort. A lot of poop.
Yeah, I guess Red Dead sort of prepped us with the real life pooping and brushing.
Yeah. Well, speaking of video games, transition. What are you playing?
Artful. Well, actually, it's more like, what are you playing, and what did Spencer decide they needed to do next because their gaming idol was doing it? We're playing Life is Strange: True Colors.
Yes, we are.
I said it like that, but it's like not. I don't know. True colors makes it sound like it's pride, baby. We're like learning about ourselves. It's fun. And it's like, it goes places. Story goes places.
It's the colors of emotions.
Oh,
those
right.
are the colors. You can see someone's true colors.
Wow,
with
the colors,
your superpower of empathy.
Maybe the real colors were the friends we made along the way.
Oh. But on a more serious note, so True Colors, Life is Strange, True Colors, newest entry in the Life is Strange series that's been going for, several years.
Yeah, long
now.
awaited.
Yeah. This is the third official. No, not third. It's basic. I don't know. It's being considered Life is Strange 3. There's Life is Strange the first season, and then there was a prequel, Life is Strange Before the Storm, and then there's Life is Strange 2. And this is essentially Life is Strange 3.
So it's the fifth installment, but third main game.
Yes, something like that. All these developers can't figure out what they're trying to do here. But this came out a few weeks ago in September. It's out on most platforms. I played it on PlayStation. Are you playing it on PlayStation?
Yes, I am. PS5, baby.
Yeah, Sony ponies all the way.
It's vivid. I'll tell you that.
It is vivid. But essentially the description of what a Life of Strange game is they are episodic, narrative, kind of dialogue decision based, sort of choose your own adventure style games. They also the reason that life is strange in the Life is Strange games is that they all tend to revolve around a character in the story who has some sort of supernatural power. In the first game, the main character, Max Caulfield, had the ability to rewind time for short like little bursts. In Life is Strange 2, the main character's younger brother could move objects with his mind. And in Life is Strange True Colors, the main character, Alex Chen, that you play as, has the power of empathy, which essentially means that when people experience strong emotions around her, she sees the emotion reflected as an aura. She sees their true colors emerging from within, and she's able to absorb some of that emotion and essentially read their minds a little bit and draw information off of their emotions and find out like what's causing that emotion. She, I don't want to spoil anything in the game, but this happens relatively early in the game. She develops the ability to actually like see the world through their eyes and try to better understand what's causing them their emotions. Mm-hmm. So that's the strange bit of the game. But yeah, the games really center on fairly grounded, like human interactions. They center on like relationship building between your main character and the people around you. The decisions that you make often influence the narrative in sometimes subtle, sometimes less subtle ways. There's some things that you can have a dramatic impact on. There's other things that will just kind of impact bits of dialogue from other characters throughout the game. But you are you're going around the world, you're interacting with other people in the world, and you're making dialogue decisions that will influence your relationship to those characters and the direction that the story takes. Mm-hmm. That's the setup. How are you liking it?
I'm loving it. This is my first real Life is Strange game. I know you're a big Life is Strange fan, so I'd heard of it from you. I don't know. It never lined up with the right time in my life to draw me in, but this game came out and I was really excited to have the opportunity to play it. I also feel like I loved hearing you talk about the title of Life is Strange. It kind of makes me think like it also feels like life is strange because even in the first, like you're making hundreds and hundreds of decisions throughout this game. And it kind of can feel like a small decision you made, like just like a real person, like a thoughtless thing you said, or a choice you made that maybe was selfish and you couldn't immediately see the implications of which, or something that you said that was supportive that actually meant a lot to someone and influenced them. Like it's just strange the way things work out sometimes. And I think it really encapsulates that too. Immediately I was struck within the first opening moments of the game by how expressive it was. Like, I don't think I've ever seen so many micro expressions just traveling across someone's face, as I did in the first few moments, where Alex Chen, the protagonist, a 21-year-old who's appears to be sort of graduating from a program where they were staying with other young people who have experienced some kind of like mental illness or experiences. Like, it seems like she has had past violence in her life. She's, grew up in a foster care system and had to really fight to protect herself. And so, this is just someone who's coming into adulthood off of a lot of trauma. And it opens with an interview with her and her doctor, kind of like an exit interview. And you're just seeing it, like, this is the first 2 minutes with this character. And yet I feel like I saw dozens of emotions cross her face. And it's certainly the most expressive like model in a video game that I have ever encountered. It felt like so cinematic, like I was watching a show. I was just really struck by that, because I think too it speaks to how she's emotionally in touch with herself as well as everyone around her, and maybe that latter part is forced and not something that she sees more as a curse than a power. But I've never seen a more emotive character, which I was really excited about. I don't know if Jamie, if you had any observations there.
No, I think, so I've beaten the game Life is Strange True Colors, and I have played all the other Life is Strange games, including the one that was basically Tell Me Why. It's essentially a Life is Strange game. It's made by Don't Nod, which are the developers that made the first Life is Strange game. This game is made by Deck 9, because the Life is Strange brand is owned and operated by Square Enix, and they have actually passed the mantle around to these two different developers, Don't Nod and Deck 9. The game that Deck 9 made previously was Before the Storm, which was the prequel to the first season of Life is Strange. Anyway, I kind of digressed a little bit there. But what I was getting is I've played all of the games. This one by far took the biggest leap in terms of graphical fidelity. And none of the games, even this one, this is not your CGI powerhouse of a game, right? This is not the game where everything looks true to life and is incredibly detailed. And it's not that. Like, these are not games that's not where they're putting their budget towards, nor do I think they necessarily should. But what I found really interesting with True Colors is that they very clearly were like, we want to put time and effort and money into what we think is really essential to telling these stories. And it's very clear that they put that time and money and effort into making the characters emote and behave like their facial expressions are some of the most. And even then, it's not like I look at Alex Chen's character model and I'm like, oh my God, it's not like Uncanny Valley. It's not like, oh, that looks like a real person on the screen. But the minutia of the way the face moves, the eyes move, the expressions that are able to be conveyed on the face is some of the most detailed that I've seen in a game. And they do it with kind of simple strokes. I just think it's really genius the way they applied their resources to that, because I think sometimes developers get really hung up on making everything, bringing everything up to a certain quality level. And they were like, we don't need the entire world to look realistic. We don't need all that can be more broad strokes. But what this game is about humans interacting with each other. And so we want that to feel really authentic. And so they put the time and energy into those character expressions. I think it makes a huge impact on the story and the way the characters look and relate to each other. And I found all that stuff really, really impressive.
Absolutely. I was also pretty struck by the setting in which the game was placed. Like, it's a town called something Springs, Colorado. Haven Springs.
Yep.
And I mean, it feels like you're stepping right into a postcard. We were recently talking about the game Lake. And this is a very different game from Lake, but I feel like one thing that did feel related to me was just the feeling of being bathed in light and beautiful nature, like just one beautifully rendered water and trees and mountains, and this little picturesque town sort of nestled in this valley. It's like one main street with little shops, and there's a dispensary and a bar, and like I just felt like I was in Colorado. Like it was very thoughtfully and I think lovingly rendered.
Yeah, no, the environments are, I'm not, when I say like, they're not putting their time and effort into the graphical fidelity of the environments. The environments still do look really good in this game. They're very lush and colorful. Haven Springs has like a very bright. This is also the first time that they've given you like kind of these open world elements, like in small form, right? Haven's a pretty small town, but there's a lot of moments in the game when you kind of have free reign to just kind of run through the town, which is new for Life is Strange as a format too. Usually the areas you're able to roam in are pretty contained, like maybe to a room or a house, or a backyard. Like it would be pretty small. So this game is definitely taking a lot of big steps for Life is Strange as a series. But those, to the point of the environments, the one thing that I think the Life is Strange games do so well, and that this game continues in that vein, is they not only give you a pretty space to exist in, but they give you opportunities to actually sit and reflect and enjoy that space. There's a moment even in the first episode that you played, right, when you first arrive at Haven Springs and you're kind of taking it all in. And Alex is here. She's come to Haven to reconnect with her older brother. They were separated as children. He was put into a separate foster care home. But now that she is out of the program that she was in, he's invited her to come live with him here in Haven. Her brother's name is Gabe, and she gets off the bus and they meet on this bridge, and it's a little bit awkward. You can kind of choose how awkward you want it to be. Like if Alex is more excited to see Gabe or if she's more nervous, you can kind of make those dialogue decisions. But after you guys have a moment to reconnect with each other, you're both just standing on this bridge, and it just gives you a moment. Like the game will have these moments where a really, a charming little indie song will start playing. You'll get the twang of a guitar or maybe a few tickling piano keys, and it'll start just showing still shots of the environment that you're in as the character is standing in it, that feels almost like a music video. It's very cinematic, and there'll just be a little button prompt that appears for a moment in the lower right corner that says press this button to leave. But you can stay in those moments for as long as you want. The song will just keep playing, the beautiful imagery will keep playing across the screen, and the character in this moment is presented in a pensive state. So in this bridge scene, Alex and Gabe are just kind of leaning on the bridge, and they're looking at the water that's flowing beneath them and just kind of taking it all in. And I think the game does a really good job of giving you these, they're optional. If you don't want to take these moments, you don't have to take them. But for a game that's so focused on emotional beats, on telling, I think sometimes leaning into melodrama, but they're emotionally powerful and resonant stories where a lot of intense stuff has the potential to happen. And I think in most games don't want you to put the controller down. Most games want to keep you engaged all the time. They want to keep you running from intense event to intense event. And Life is Strange is like, okay, something intense just happened. Why don't you take a moment and process it and breathe and sit in that moment and listen to this pleasant music, and the character will have some musings, and you as the player can just have some musings, and you can just kind of sit. You can just kind of sit and process. I think that's really powerful. I don't think a lot of media in general creates space for processing and reflection within the medium. So I've always really appreciated that about the Life is Strange games, and this one certainly continues that practice.
Yeah, I have been struck by how the emotional capacity of the game. I think my main complaint so far is that I want things to move faster. I want the ability to speed up a cutscene. I want the ability to run. You can walk, or you can walk slightly faster. I wanted it to move quicker. And I feel like the game has sort of been an exercise for me in slowing down. And it really kind of brings me to the therapy I've been doing, which is outside with a therapist that I take walks in the forest with. And always, if I'm talking down a trail that gets, like, I start getting agitated, or I start getting upset, or I start, circling in my mind the same thing, or I'm getting all caught up in my sadness or anger or pain or whatever, that I'm starting to kind of lose my grip. She'll always have me kind of take a step, slow down, take a breath, let my gaze rest where it wants to rest. She always says, like, let your gaze rest, focus on your breathing, and let your eye be drawn where it wants to be drawn. And then tell me what you notice. And what I notice is things in nature, the way the light is moving through the water, or the way a little animal just crossed our path, or a certain flower or a mushroom that I just noticed. And I just love, like, I think this character is someone who, because of her power, she is very strongly empathetic to the point where other people's emotions infect her and cause her to lose control of herself because she's so caught up in the strength of what they're feeling. Like, she's someone who's had to, in order to survive, develop the capacity to self-regulate, self-soothe, and find her center, to meditate in a lot of ways, and to just kind of like take an approach towards approaching like her own mind with curiosity and empathy and patience, which is something that takes years for people to develop in therapy. That's something that I'm working on right now, is like just the ability to process and hold space for the things you're feeling and to acknowledge them. Because even though it's you and yourself, like ignoring yourself or invalidating yourself, like those have real effects on your ability to cope and your ability to move forward and your ability to process and understand your own emotions. So I think the fact that this game is not like putting you in therapy, but is teaching you through your surroundings and through your interactions as this character to kind of like take your fear, take your anger and move through it, or try to understand it in a gentle and open way. Like, that's something that people go to therapy for years to figure out how to do. So I've just been really struck by that, because immediately I felt like, I was like, oh, this is just like what I do with my therapist. And I love that this game is showing me this in a way that doesn't feel like it's preaching to me or talking down to me or being like, oh, this is a game about mental illness. It's like, no, like these are all just skills for life. These are skills for life. And I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You heard it here first, folks. Life is Strange True Colors. $60 therapy.
Yeah, $60 therapy. Considering that therapy is like $20 copay per session, that's like a month of therapy.
Yeah, it's like a 12-hour game. That's like 12 therapy sessions for $60. It's fucking,
it's a bargain.
Hell of a deal. Nah, but I'm really excited for you to keep playing this game. Like I said before, I did finish the game. It is my favorite Life is Strange game with a bullet. I have liked them all. I think this one takes some really noteworthy steps in the right direction. The series has always been a little bit melodramatic. Mm-hmm. The writing has sometimes felt slightly inauthentic, or like a lot of the games have focused on high school age kids, and you can kind of feel that they are not talking and acting quite like high school age kids. This one ages the main character up a little bit, and I think that was the right choice. It like feels, the dialogue just feels more right for the characters that are speaking to each other. So while I've always enjoyed the games, this one is definitely an improvement in all ways, and the best of the bunch. And I think probably a don't miss it experience for this year if you're into games at all. The one complaint issue, I don't know. I just the strange bit of Life is Strange. The powers, I am ready for us to leave it behind. I'm ready to just get stuff that feels like more slice of life. I also don't need quite the degree of melodrama or extreme events that they imbue the stories with. I think sometimes this game less so than any of the others, in my opinion, but I just think it has at a certain point, it's like, oh my gosh, and this is happening now too to this person. Like, most of these stories center around characters who are going through really intense or traumatic events. And sure, that makes good storytelling. But I just think when you clearly have a team of writers who write human interaction so well, who are creating such a a great space to play with emotion and character dynamics and relationships, we could probably also tell stories that aren't about the worst day of these
Right.
characters' lives. And it could still be really interesting. So I'd be game to see that. I'd be game to see that, and I think that would feel a little bit less. I don't know. They just have the potential to feel a little bit after school, specially, or teen drama. There's just they're a little bit emo, and I still love them for that. And the emotions that they bring out are still really real and powerful. And I always I just get obsessed with the characters in these games. And when they're finished, you kind of feel like you're leaving behind a group of friends that you made. But yeah, they could probably dial that back a little bit, and it would feel a bit more authentic, and I would love it just as much. But
right, because someone having powers, it's simultaneously grounded within a very real world, and at the same time, it's and also you have these powers that no one understands, and they are so strong and have changed the trajectory of your life, and it's okay, so are we going to focus on that a little bit more? But it's no, the power just becomes just part of your character's thing, and it's it almost feels because it's a video game, we have to give the protagonist some power or something to make this sort of emotional intelligence make sense. And it's no, I honestly keep forgetting that I have powers until there's a scene where it's use your power to do this. And it's oh, right, that's a thing. I was getting all caught up in the very human stories being told here in this picturesque town. So I feel it's almost the story's trying to carry, by default, something has got to sort of fall by the wayside. I think we're focusing on these characters. And so the powers are not really the point of the story. But as a result, it kind of, I don't know, it loses its place a little. I'm not sure what to do about that.
Yeah. And I think aside from the first game where, the main character had the ability to rewind time. So it had a very, you still didn't need it. It felt very intrinsic to the narrative, this time rewind thing. So it made a lot of sense. And I feel like they've kind of kept throwing the powers in there, but I don't know if any of the games since have needed them. And to that point, Before the Storm, which is the previous game that Deck 9 made, which was the prequel to the first Life is Strange, that didn't have a character in it that had a power like this. That there was nothing like that in that game. And that game is still, I don't know, it's probably tied with Life is Strange 2 for my second favorite in the series. So they don't need to have this. Alex could have just been an empathetic person and just been getting natural insight into without having to read people's minds.
Yeah. Right.
And absorb their emotions. And that still could have been a really compelling story.
Right. There's this scene where I'm going to try to do it without spoiling, but a character is very sad and standing in Alex's apartment. And Alex goes, "Oh, I must use my powers to figure out why this person is so sad and understand how I can help them." And the extent of using the powers was walking around the apartment, looking at a foosball table, looking at a picture of two friends, looking at, some alcohol, and then being something happened at a bar between these two friends, and I now understand enough to help you. And it's I feel you could have just understood that by talking to her.
Yeah. There's a very obvious reason why the character is sad that you wouldn't have had to read their mind to find out.
Yeah.
And you probably could have come up with a way to try to help this person feel better without having to read their mind as well. So yeah,
just talk to people.
Yeah. Well, and I guess I just find myself thinking how much more emotionally resonant that could be too, to show someone that you don't need superpowers to be able to help someone when they're sad, or try to connect with someone across an emotion. I don't know. It's just these are very natural human things that we have to do. So, and I feel like Deck 9 is trying to lean in that direction, but whether or not it feels like the superpower thing is becoming more of a like something that's tying their hands from telling the narratives they want to tell, as opposed to something that's adding to the narrative at this point. And I would really be fine with us just letting it go. Life is strange, even for people who don't have superpowers.
Absolutely. Well, I have to say, I was one of my favorite books growing up was Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. And that book also centers on a heroine who has this power of empathy, and it's so strong that it can be debilitating at times. But being able to feel other people's feelings, it's almost like queerness, in that it forces you to kind of understand and keep yourself open to the idea that there are lots of people out there who are different from you. And there are also like tons of very valid ways of existing. And also that even when we're racked with emotion, we still have choice. And also that the only constant in life is change, and even an emotional state can fluctuate from moment to moment. And so I just really loved, I think after reading that book, I was transformed. And I've never really seen many stories about empaths or this kind of power. Like there's tons of vampire and werewolf and wizard and stuff out there, but you don't really get to experience a lot of this power. And I think something that's so rooted in just the human condition of like, emotions are magic. Emotions can be transformative. Emotions can take your breath away, and fundamentally change the course of your life. And so I really enjoyed that aspect too.
Yeah. And the way that our emotions can impact other people, especially people who are paying attention to what our emotional state is, right? Like part of Alex's whole thing is that she's receptive to other people's emotions. And so those emotions can impact her and cause her to have a similar emotion. I just think that's really like, you don't need a superpower for that either, right? If you're tuned in to another person and you're paying attention to them and their needs and their desires, and you're aware of their emotions, their emotional state will impact you as well, and vice versa. I don't know.
Thanks, social anxiety.
Yeah,
the real superpower.
Yeah. Well, I would love to rebrand that as a social as a superpower. My anxiety.
Yeah, this is going to be a crucial part of my trauma healing. Is Life is Strange, True Colors taught me to see my anxiety as a superpower.
Oh my God. That's a great read. That's a great read. Please bring that to your therapist.
I shall.
get their opinion on it. Well, folks, we have an interesting episode for you today. Because today, well, not today specifically, but around this time.
Yeah, let's call it today.
Why not today? It's our 1 year anniversary. We've been doing pixel therapy for a whole fucking year.
What the hell? Also, we've recently, I think it's a beautiful thing, we've recently hit 50,000 downloads a year later. 1 year
Holy
later.
Shit.
50,000 downloads, 28 episodes?
28 episodes, 2 bonus episodes. So technically 30 episodes, but we're saying 28 official episodes. So our first 2 official episodes released on September 22nd, 2020. And we had an intro bonus episode that came out a week before that on the 15th, but we're calling September 22nd like our anniversary date.
The birth.
That's the birth.
The birthing event.
Oh, God. So we've been doing this for a fucking year. So we thought to kind of celebrate that a little bit and to mark the occasion, because it's important to mark important events in your life.
Growth.
That's one of the key things to help fight burnout is marking significant events, taking a moment to celebrate growth and adjustment.
Nice.
Well, yeah, because like part of burnout is like feeling that you're just in the grind all the time and nothing ever gets anywhere. So taking a moment to say like, look what we accomplished, and having a pause for that is really important.
Absolutely. So in light of that, today's episode, we don't have a guest for you. I'm sorry. If you're someone who just skips to the interview, bye-bye now. And hi again. We're back. Hi again. Because today's guest is us. We're going to be interviewing ourselves a little bit and talking a bit about how this past year has been, and then sharing with y'all
the main question that we ask all of our guests, which is, what's a game in your life that's had a significant impact? And so Spencer and I are each going to talk about that.
And I have to say right off the bat that I'm like, I don't know how all of our guests have just been like, oh yeah, here's my game that impacted me, because this is hard.
Yeah. Like, shout out to every guest we've ever had who like responded to that question and came up with an answer.
Yeah.
Like, and there've been a few people over the last year that have been like, I need more time to come up with this. And I really understand
I feel
where
that
you're
now.
coming from now. And for everyone who responded right away and knew what game they wanted to talk about, holy cow.
You're a monster.
What's it feel like to be able to make a decision? Can you teach me how?
Yeah, please help us.
Because all I know is be indecisive and have anxiety.
Yeah. Same.
But here it is. We're in the interview section now, and it's me and Spencer. And I just want to start by saying, like, thank you, especially if you're still listening and hearing that we didn't have an interview today didn't send you away. But also just like, thanks for hitting download. Thanks for hitting download 50,000 times. Holy shit.
To the one person who hit download 50,000 times, we're really grateful to you, our one listener.
Downloading the episode on every device that they have so that we get every single one of those downloads.
Absolutely. But no, like, to your point about how it's easier said than done to like acknowledge. And I just remember when we first launched the podcast being like, okay, we'll try to hit, 2 downloads a day. That'll be a huge win for us.
Oh, our first benchmark was like, if we could get an episode that has 100 downloads, like, I'll die happy.
Yeah.
I'll die happy. And now our episodes average a few thousand downloads. And
and that's
kind of
crazy.
Kind of insane.
Yeah, like, I'm like, I don't know. It's just, it feels nice to have conversations that touch other people.
Yeah. Just in like know that, oh, I felt and thought a thing and that resonated with somebody else and made them feel and think and feel a thing. Almost like what we were just talking about with Life is Strange 2 Colors and how our emotional interior impacts other people.
Holy fuck. And also just how many people in the games industry, like, I don't know, I think the industry can feel like a monolith. And also that, I don't know, there are people smarter and more interesting and more talented than me who have plenty of things to say about it. But it's like, I think we've had some really interesting, dynamic guests on the show and folks who themselves are figures in the gaming industry. And they not only were happy to talk to us, but were honored to be on the show and to have a platform to share their thoughts and to talk to people like us. And so, I don't know, it just reminds me, I think one of the things that's so special about game making and the community around games is that it's such an open, or can be a very like open source culture. Like, people are so willing to share not just what they've done, but how they got there. There's no, in the right environments, there is no gatekeeping. There's no hierarchy. There's no, scarcity mindset about like, there's only enough resources for me or enough attention for me. Like, there are also so many people in the gaming industry who believe that games belong in the hands of everyday people and that shouldn't be a mystery. It shouldn't be shrouded in mystique, like how games are made or who gets to be the chosen one to make them. Like, games are like art. They're just an expression. And I love having the opportunity to talk to people who feel that way too.
Yeah, 100% agree. And it's been so humbling isn't the right word. I'm just so grateful for every single person that got that email from us saying, like, will you be on the podcast? And said yes. Like, even when we were, I still feel like we're kind of nobodies, which isn't, I don't mean to discredit all the folks listening to us. We so appreciate it. But like, we're not, I don't know. It just feels like we're just two people just doing this and plugging away and trying to do the best we can. And the fact that folks that I know some of it is just like the way we lionize folks on the internet, and someone can seem like something else because they have X number of followers or they've written for X site or whatever. They can feel like, but it's been a very humanizing process because yes, we are all just human individuals, like trying to get through this thing we call life, and folks generally like to be invited to do things and share their expertise and have a fun conversation, but also just like the fact that so many people have been willing to give us that time and energy when it doesn't feel like we are anything big.
And also that there's no other places in my life where I feel like that kind of response is expected. Like, I barely answer emails. And the fact that we email people and usually within 24 to 48 hours, they're like, yes, I can't wait. Here's when I'm available. Let's do it. Like, I feel like I've never, like, even when I'm networking on LinkedIn, 99% of the time you send a message and you don't hear anything back. And so I think it really just speaks to what it's so special, like the gaming community. Like,
yeah,
I don't think it's so easy to just connect with people in most circumstances.
No,
but the shared interest holds such power.
Yeah. And it's that willingness to lean in. And it's the fact that like I'm reaching across the divide of the internet to a stranger. I am a stranger to you. You're a stranger to me. But here's this thing that we both love and we'd love to talk to you about it. And the fact that someone is both willing to, regardless of who they are, what their follower count is, that they are willing to invest their time and energy in that and do that with a stranger is, I don't know, man, it's really fucking special. And I feel very grateful for all of the guests that have given us that time and been so gracious, and everyone who is sitting here listening to this, because that's a time and emotional investment too, right? Like you have so many things that you could be doing with your time on a day-to-day basis. So many, I know, like our lives are busy and full, and the fact that you're taking any time out of that to listen
to be our besties,
to listen to us sit here and spit into a microphone, it means a lot. It means a whole hell of a lot.
It's pretty gay, you guys. So Jamie, we've talked a bit about how the podcast has affected us and just some of our reflections on the past year. Do you feel like anything's changed about the way that you approach games or your relationship to gaming itself?
Definitely in this year of our Lord 2021. Yeah. I would say, in the last 8 to 9 months, I've stopped trophy hunting.
Because I want to
play more games. But trophy hunting takes a lot of time. Like you get stuck on the same game for a long time.
Damn.
I've just been, there's still games that I'm getting the platinum in that I got the platinum in Ratchet and Clank. Like if I really love the game, I'm still getting it, but I'm not feeling like I need to do it for every game. Or if a game's like, you can get the platinum, just replay the entire game on hard. I'm like, no, like that's not a time investment that I want to give you. And I think that has been a huge impact of the podcast because I'm, first of all, letting go of the need to feel productive with my gaming. But I'm also just like, there's so many games to play. Why would I like zero in on this one game and feel like I didn't complete it if I did? I don't know. I'm just having an easier time being more fluid with the games that I play and the amount of games that I play. My like list of games that I played this year is like twice as long as the list last year.
Wow.
And some of that is just like, I want to make sure I'm moving around and playing things that bring me some level of joy or interest, so that part of it's like, so I have something interesting to say on this podcast.
Yeah.
But it felt like it's felt like the excuse of trying not to get stuck on anything for the podcast has opened me up to just paying attention to what I'm actually wanting to think and feel and play. What about you? Has your relationship to gaming changed?
Well, I mean, I feel like I'm on the converse of that. Like I relate to what you're saying, but in terms of, I feel like I'm approaching games with a little bit more discipline or respect, perhaps. Like I think I've been, I still haven't platinumed a game, so it's not, I'm still working on this. Platinumed. Love. But like, I feel like I'm spending more time with them. I'm not just rushing through them to get to the end and have the gratification of knowing what, quote unquote, knowing what happened. I feel like I'm paying more attention to the many layers that are at play and the scale of these games. Like I think something that I've become more aware of is not just the layers of the game in the game, but also all that it took to make it happen. I think I was really struck by the moments throughout this past year where we've talked about a game and then the developer has responded and been like, thank you, or has shared an episode and been like, I really appreciated this. There's just something that I clicked in me where I was like, oh my gosh, there is someone on the other end who created this thing and they're listening to me, some random person, about what I have to say about that thing that they poured their heart and life and soul into. Yeah. And they are respecting it back. Like there was something really powerful there about the exchange of energy. And it also, I think, made me more sensitive maybe, or more like, I feel like I see so much of people in games now. Like they feel so much more human and important to me because I know what went into it and how much time it took and how much concentrated effort it took. And also that, like, I don't know, I think sometimes when you're playing a game, it can feel like I feel a lot of things and I've had a lot of life experiences. And so I can get very up in arms about certain things that maybe don't hit me the right way. Or I can say like, why didn't they just do this? Or why didn't they just do that? And I think I'm not saying that critique isn't important or necessary. I think I love feedback and I think critique is a necessary part of growth. But I think just being made aware of all of the humanity that goes into it just changed something in me where I feel like I just appreciate games so much more. And maybe I have more empathy for seeing them as like fluid, changing, living works of art. And okay, and I want to pause there and be like, doesn't mean like, you know, oh, sexism is fine in games because it was a human experience and some humans are sexist. It's like, no, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, this isn't a pass for folks to
There's
like
no passes.
include any sort of bigotry in their games.
Right. But I think I'm just, I don't know, I'm just all over again. I'm struck by all of the levels at which games work on you. Like even with this Life is Strange example, like, I know that there's someone and many people, I'm sure, who worked on that game who are living with anxiety, who are living with debilitating mental illness, who struggle to get out of bed, who have experienced loss, who have experienced pain, and like they're transmuting that into something powerful that like lots of people can relate to. That's crazy. Like, I don't know. I don't feel like that's just such a gift and such a power in and of itself. Like, I think, you know, anyone who's gone through trauma or has had life experiences that have shaped them, like they're under no obligation to share those experiences or make them marketable to others. I think surviving through that, moving through that, letting it change you. Like those are all, that alone is incredible and should be lauded. And also people who are able to, you know, turn it into experience that can be shared with others. Like, I just feel like what else is the point of being human but to be able to share things like that? So I know I'm getting all woo woo and stuff, but like, I just feel
Isn't
like
that what we do here?
Yeah, I guess so. But I just feel like the world has opened up. Like I'm seeing inside the matrix of a game.
Yeah.
I'm not just seeing it as a physical object anymore. I'm seeing it as a manifestation of so many things. And I'm also just struck by how they are portals through which you can reach through and touch someone else. Like there is someone on the other side of the game. And just the things that we're saying on the podcast that can reach them, and there can be a connection there. Like that's incredible too. Like I don't think I could ever experience that with a movie or book. Like it's just not a thing. So it's just cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. Has anything changed in your relationship, Jamie?
Oh, Jamie. I say that, but I wrote all the questions ahead. I was like,
I was going to say, like, I would never, ever ask this question of my own volition. Yeah.
Well, I do think working on this together has strengthened our relationship. Like, I feel like our friendship has matured in a lot of ways. I think we've seen sides of each other that we haven't shown each other before. And I think that that's been, like, if anything, it's brought us closer. Like, I think, I think that's the real litmus test of friendship is like, how are you when you're stressed, or how are you when you're upset, or how, and it's not like I don't think we've even had a fight, and which is kind of crazy considering like this year. And like working on something like this with someone, like you're bound to kind of like butt heads, but I don't even think we've had a moment like that. Like if anything, we've had like, I don't know, surface level disagreements about like, should we schedule this, or should we talk about this, or should we talk about that? But like, I don't know. I just think so much can come out when you're working on something that you're both very passionate about, and then are also two very, very, very different people, which we are. And just, I don't know. Just the fact that I feel like I don't know, like I feel like we're two sides of a coin. Like I feel like you fill in the areas that are the strengths that I don't have, and like, or I don't know, not that I don't have, like, it's just, you are the other side of me.
Of the nickel that is you. Or I don't know, do you want to be a quarter?
Let's be a penny. It's like expensive and useless.
There we go. We'll be the two sides of the penny.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, what you're saying resonates. I definitely think the podcast has brought us closer together in a like very like honest and transparent way. Like I think we've had to be super honest with each other to be able to do this for a year. And you know, it's like, yeah, no, we haven't gotten into any major disagreements or fights because like we're both invested in like just making a good thing. Which isn't to say like I'm sure I've irritated you with my like,
I'm sure I've irritated you.
Slack messages, but it's like it doesn't boil into a fight because we kind of like those irritations get kind of left at the door when we're in the interest of like making a good podcast and remaining friends. We're not like, none of it's deal breakers, right?
Right.
Like I think we accept each other the way that we are at the end of the day. So yeah, but I think it's been fun and rewarding to get to know you better, to become better friends with you. I definitely think this is the most honest and comfortable relationship that I have aside from my partner, with the one I have with my partner.
Take that, Booker. And Tess.
Well, you know, don't really have like, those are, you know, I don't know. The relations with my dogs are pretty different, I think. You know, it's a little one-sided.
I tell my cat everything.
Okay, well, you know, to each their own. Nah, but it's been great. It's been a lot of fun, and yeah, I'm glad that you have given me the space to be a neurotic project manager.
I need
it, and that like that energy has been welcome, and that I've also tried to like. I feel like my relationship with you helps teach me how to be more
patient,
flexible. that patient, I don't know if like patient's not the right word. It's flexible. Like you prefer to kind of do things in a more in the moment way.
Mhm.
And that's a lot harder for me. But I've like leaned into that, and I feel like I'm slowly getting better at being more flexible and being able, like, I don't have to have every second of a thing planned out in order for it to go okay.
That's her nice way of saying Spencer is constantly winging it, and I have learned to cope with that. No, I don't know. I do feel like you, at the same time, have sort of taught me, like, the importance of planning. That sounds like so, I don't know, it sounds like passive aggressive or something, but I completely mean it. Like, I don't know. There's a certain security and ease of stress that comes with like knowing what you're going to do and sticking to that. And I just appreciate you for kind of like holding me accountable and for, I don't know. I think I really struggle with just like being a consistent person. And so this podcast is, I think, the only time in my life where it hasn't felt eventually like something that I can't keep doing, or that I talk myself out of, or that I convince myself I don't deserve. Like, I think a big part of that is you, because I'm doing it like for us and not sinking into my own like anxiety and letting myself give up.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Thanks for being a friend.
Thank you too. Thank you too. I mean, and I think like, yeah, I don't know. You're making fun of like the ways you're teaching me to be able to like do just improvise a bit more. Like that's fucking good for me. Like things don't need to be completely 100% nailed down, and I need to be okay with something shifting. And I think I am pretty good in the moment. I think this is what I'm learning about myself is like I can handle things not going according to plan in the moment, and it's fine, and it doesn't cause me some deep distress, and I can usually improvise quite well. But I have this thing in advance where I feel like it has to be all planned out in advance. Even if I'm going to be totally fine if it doesn't go according to plan, I get all this advance anxiety about the thing being completely figured out. And you're consistent, like, can we do this instead? And be like pivoting and learning that like that's okay. And like it was totally fine to pivot, and having the plan didn't really get us anywhere. Like, yeah, just learning like where the structure is helpful and where it's not.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
So, anyway, thank you.
Well, thank you, first of all.
First of all, an hour into the podcast. Yeah. First of all, thank you.
Now that we've been doing it for a year, where do you think, like, do you have any goals for where you want to take the podcast next? Like how you want to see it grow or change?
Well, once upon a time, we were talking about streaming.
Yes.
And I think we've had some really honest conversations with each other about just the challenges of that. Like part of what makes the podcast sustainable for us right now is that it's still fitting within a time frame and a box that we can maintain. And like so much respect, man, to people who work full-time jobs and stream on a regular schedule. The amount of time and energy and effort, like streaming is not just like a fun side project. Go pay your Twitch streamers, folks.
Yeah,
if you're watching people on stream, drop them some money, because that shit is hard work. And we didn't even try to do it. This is just coming from the research and looking into it. Like the amount of thought and effort that needs to go into that it's pretty immense. And so I just don't know. I don't know if that's in the cards for us. I don't know if like I personally have that bandwidth, or if that's personally what I want. Like it sounds fun in theory, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So for me, like when I think of like what we want our next step to be, it's got to continue to be something that we can maintain, which isn't to say I don't want to put more at, like, I don't want it to sound like I'm like, this only works if it's no effort. It's still a lot of effort what we're doing. I just want to be able to keep sustaining and becoming better podcasters, having more excellent guests on the show. I'd love to see our Patreon community grow a bit, and not just because like I want more Patreon money. That's not at all what it's about. I just want to have more of a back and forth with our listeners.
Yeah.
But I also appreciate that, like, again, you're a busy person. You've got shit to do. You don't have time to come into our Patreon and send us messages. I get that.
You're already dedicating 2 hours to us every week, other week. Now we need you in the Patreon interacting.
Yeah. And it's like, but it would be nice to just hear a little bit more from folks, to have a little bit more of a back and forth. I don't know, it's parasocial relationships and all that, but I feel like we're sitting here talking into a void, and we get the messages back, we see the downloads, we know it's having an impact. But I'd love for there to be a little bit more of a dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that resonates a lot. Like, I think the main reason that I want to stream is for that aspect of the connecting with the people on the other side. Like, every time we receive a DM or a comment or a YouTube subscription or an email, like, it's like hard to even put into words how it feels. Like, it's just such a, like, it's like I receive one email and I'm like, this is why we do it, you know? Like, it's just, it's so much more impactful even than the download numbers, is just seeing that someone took time out of their day to tell us in a personal way, like, how they felt, without even any expectation of us responding. Like, us listening to the show is like enough of a return. Like, it really feels like when you listen to a podcast, it really feels like a conversation, like you're hanging out with a friend. And so, I think I've not totally given up on the dream of streaming. I don't know if it's something that we'd be doing like every week. It would definitely not be something that we were doing every week, at least to start, until we're totally able to quit our jobs and become full-time gaming content creators, which I'm still manifesting.
Gotta get the Patreon money.
Exactly. So I, for one, am still definitely like saving up for a computer that I can use to game and stream. And I think that's definitely a goal for the next year, is like at least once going on Twitch or getting on the air and having a conversation or playing a game together. Like, I feel like it would be a really cool way to just kind of reach through the airwaves and touch something real. Like, I just feel like with podcasting, like you said, we're talking into a void. And so just continuing to build community with y'all and finding opportunities for touch points, maybe even doing some kind of, whether it's a conference or even a live, like attending something in person would be really cool. So I think my themes for the next year are like connection and community. Like, I just want to keep growing that side of it.
Yeah. And I want to too. And not just for the there's obviously the dopamine hit of getting an email, getting the like, getting the follow. But it's also like and we have had people reach out via email on occasion, and those emails are so fucking precious to me, not just because it's an opportunity to hear from y'all directly and hear how the content that we're making is impacting you, but also it's an opportunity for us to like I can say thank you to this mic, like to all the faceless like masses, but like when someone sends an email, we can say thank you specifically for this email that you sent us and for your listenership. And like, it's almost like putting a, not a name to a face, because we're still not seeing the folks who are emailing us, but it's just like, there's a person.
Yeah.
That's a real person right there.
That's right.
And they took this time, and we get to have this connection in this moment. So I don't know. Send us your emails.
Yeah.
therapypod@gmail.com. We want to hear from you.
Yeah, write us, call us.
Call us. Yeah, we'll set up a voicemail box.
Yeah.
Spencer,
Jamie,
I think we should share a little bit about the games that have impacted us now.
I'm not ready. Oh my God. I'm not ready.
You're not ready?
It's funny, like, it's just like any other episode, but it feels like there's just so much. I'm putting so much pressure on myself because it's our 1 year anniversary, but it's so hard to just pick one game. I really struggled. But yeah, so as you're saying, like we like to ask guests to share a game that has influenced their life in a meaningful way. Mm-hmm. For me, I chose Horizon Zero Dawn. And I just want to say, because I can't not say it, that like, I feel like this may not be the only time that Jamie and I share games that have impacted us, because I could not get it down to one.
It was a tough decision.
Yeah, like it's hard. Well, I'll talk more about Horizon, but what was yours, just so that we know?
Oh, we're just throwing the games out there. The game that I'm going to be talking about is Transistor.
Okay. All right. So Horizon Zero Dawn. This is a game that came out in 2017. It is a action role-playing game by Guerilla Games.
Yeah.
And published by Sony. And the plot follows Aloy, who is a young hunter in a world, a post-apocalyptic world. It's been like 1,000 years since the wipeout of civilization, where people are now living in these kind of like nomadic, scattered, tribal-like populations. So this is a world overrun by machines, caused by an apocalypse, referred to like the people who existed in the time before, quote unquote, now, are referred to as the old ones. I always kind of love this. I know this is like a common sci-fi trope, but this kind of thing where in the distant past, humanity was very technologically advanced, and we had all of this, these weapons and knowledge, and then we were wiped out. And so the world of today is kind of like sort of starting from scratch in terms of getting back to that. And maybe they shouldn't. But you're living in this world, and Aloy has essentially been, and so she's kind of, how old do you think she is in that game? Like 18, 17?
I feel like she's supposed to be a little bit older, but maybe that's just because of like the voice actress Ashley Birch is a little bit older, so I thought maybe she was in her. Yeah, I guess maybe she is supposed to be like 18-ish.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I think in my mind she was like mid-20s, but she probably was supposed to be a bit younger than that.
Right, like she kind of reads that way, but up to interpretation.
They don't say how old she is, I don't think, in the game.
Yeah. But Aloy is a red-haired warrior. She's athletic. She's got gymnastic skills. She uses
mad gymnastic skills.
A spear and arrows. And she has this cool this piece of technology, of the old technology. It's called a focus. It's a small augmented reality device that basically gives her these unique perception abilities, like being able to scan historical objects or understand machines and how they work. And these machines, essentially, it was like the world before Aloy's was one where the climate and kind of the ecology were spinning out of control. Relatable. And scientists had decided to invent these AI animals. So like all of the robots that you encounter in the game and fight, they kind of look like dinosaurs or like predators. Like one is cat-like and one is more like a rhinoceros or a zebra that you can ride. And
the alligator ones.
The alligator guys. And the intent was for them to sort of help the Earth recover. But they were essentially corrupted with a virus and became aggressive. And so Aloy, she's living in this world and was totally cast out from the Nora tribe, which is the civilization of people with which she's living. And she was raised by another sort of outcast and loner named Rost. And he's voiced by J.B. Blanc. And essentially it's about her coming of age, figuring out her place in the world, and also uncovering the whole conspiracy behind these monster machines and how the world has come to be this way.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you played Horizon Zero Dawn too. So while we're doing this kind of plot recap, wasn't sure if you had any thoughts you wanted to share about it, anything that struck you.
No. I mean, I really enjoyed Horizon Zero Dawn when it came out. I am perpetually salty at the way HCD got kind of what I felt was like kind of short shrift or like kind of pushed to the side, because like a few weeks after Horizon Zero Dawn came out, we got the launch of Breath of the Wild. And that
the game world was never the same.
Yeah, the game world was never the same. Everyone is obsessed with Zelda. I don't know. I didn't grow up with Zelda. I don't have a touchstone to Zelda. I played Breath of the Wild. I was kind of like, okay, it's doing some cool things, but I don't understand why everyone like the narrative of Breath of the Wild did not grab me. I felt very lost.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what I should be doing. Like, the characters don't even have voice acting. I just had a really hard time understanding why everyone was like, this is the pinnacle of game development.
There's not even voice acting.
There's not even voice acting. And not that like that is like, you can have an excellent game without voice acting. I'm not saying that like you can't have an excellent game without voice acting, but it's just very strange to me. It was just really strange to me that I just didn't understand it. And to some degree I still don't. And it's given me like perpetual salt, even though I can objectively see like the things that make Breath of the Wild a special game. I am perpetually salty because I feel like Horizon Zero Dawn did not get enough. Like, Horizon Zero Dawn was taking a lot of the things that already existed about open world games and making them a lot better, and make it in set in a super, what I thought was a really interesting world with a really interesting narrative, really interesting lore. I love the combat in HCD, specifically the combat against the mechs. The human to human combat is definitely lacking. The stealth element's definitely lacking. There's certainly real critiques that you could levy against HCD, but I just I thought there was so much more depth to what Horizon Zero Dawn was doing versus Breath of the Wild. I felt like it kind of had like the one thing that it was doing, which was that like you can go anywhere, you can go climb that mountain. I'm just like, but yeah, is that fun? I wasn't always having fun with that in Breath of the Wild, because often I was just finding I was getting stuck somewhere that I had managed to get to, or encountering an enemy that was far too hard for me. And I don't know.
Yeah, climbing, the climbing mechanics and kind of exploration were really, really interesting in Horizon Zero Dawn. Like, I felt like they really seamlessly integrated waypoints into the scenery and into the landscape. And it popularized the Fae style God of War. Like, this is the place where you can climb because of painted white markings, which I so enjoy.
It was like, it just felt like a really good evolution and cross between what more on the path narrative games like an Uncharted had done to show you where you could and couldn't go, and while still being an open world game. I felt like the game design of Horizon Zero Dawn was very smart. And even though it didn't reinvent the wheel, it was I thought a really smart evolution of what we had already seen in open world game development. So I don't know, but then Breath of the Wild came through and like completely shifted what folks thought an open world could be like. And I understand why that was so amazing, but it was just like, but Horizon Zero Dawn was pretty cool too. And it ended up getting talked about as though it was boring or didn't matter, or because it didn't do the open world the way Breath of the Wild did it, that it shouldn't get the same attention. But it's like, well, Breath of the Wild was like, nothing was like that before. Like, that was its own thing. So I don't know. It just feels weird to like shit on them for not doing what no one else had done before.
Right.
Anyway.
Right.
Still salty.
Are you? Can tell. Everyone go play Horizon Zero Dawn and get some freaking perspective.
Yeah, there you go.
But So, masterpiece aside, like seriously, everyone go play it. We could talk about it all day. The reason why I think this game was particularly impactful for me at the time that I played it in 2017 was that it just really coincided with some tumult that was happening in my own life. So around that time, 2017 was actually when I came out personally and professionally. And I was actually seeing someone at the time. I remember it was actually like March or April of 2017. And I told my partner, and this was someone I had been with for a couple years, someone that I had teased at marrying, even though 2021 me is like, LOL, I'm not ready to get married. Like, I'm just not emotionally mature enough for that yet. I'm working on it though. But I told this person, I think that I am going to start exploring hormone replacement therapy. I think I'm trans and that this is something that I want to do. And they were like very supportive. They were, I thought everything was fine. And then basically a week later or just a couple days, the weekend before I was to start my HRT, they essentially ghosted me. I did not see them again, and I have not seen them since then. And I was incredibly depressed. I fell into a spell of just, working, coming home, falling into bed, wasn't talking to anyone. I was, newly grappling with this big shift in like this, what was also a very celebratory time for me internally in terms of like starting hormones and starting the next phase of my like journey with my gender. I was also just like incredibly lonely and confused and in pain. And so I picked up the game Horizon Zero Dawn. I remember being like, this title makes no sense to me. What is this game? Like, what is
the title
happening?
doesn't make any sense.
It makes it doesn't really make sense until you're like 75% through the game, and then you're like, But I just started playing it, and I just really connected immediately with Aloy. Just as a character who, for reasons that they don't understand, has been cast out from the community, where people who sort of look at them already mistrust them or have all these preconceived notions about who she is. Sorry, I'm using they, them pronouns, but Aloy, I'm talking about Aloy. She largely has to depend on herself. She has to kind of be her own parent, her own cheerleader, but it hasn't affected her empathy or her kindness or her deep desire for love and acceptance. Like, she still very much wants to be a part of a community, wants to give and receive love, but just doesn't know how to get it or how to get over this wall that exists between her and the rest of her community. So there was that. And also the fact that Aloy as a protagonist has received a lot of hate from the gaming community, especially recently during the Horizon Forbidden West previews, where she doesn't look feminine enough. She looks too masculine. She needs to wear makeup. She needs to, look skinnier, look whatever. Her face is too full. And like, no.
I'm just head in my hands right now. I can't even.
Also, like, how is she supposed to have? I don't even think they've reinvented makeup yet. Like, can you just chill?
No.
But also, like, she's gorgeous. Anyway, I think it just, at that time in my life, I was very much feeling ugly and undesirable. And I didn't know, like, as a trans person, if I would find love again, or I didn't know if anyone would find me attractive, or if I felt very much like an outcast, like a freak. And I just, and joining Aloy on this journey, and I think, you know, something I'm learning in therapy now is how much of healing comes from within, and how much capacity we truly have internally to be like the parent for ourselves that we never had. Like that's something that I'm learning now. Like, but back then when I was playing the game, I still felt like I could look up to Aloy as this, you know, role model for how I could cope with and overcome my own loneliness and feelings of, you know, what's the word? Like rejection. Like she had the capacity. She also has the curiosity and the empathy. She also like did eventually make friends, make connections, and it was based on like her natural magnetism and just like personality. And so all of these things were just demonstrating for me that like it would get better. And also that like being alone isn't inherently a death sentence. And also that like gender is stupid and people can look however they want and still be badasses and no one cares. I think too, for me personally, like I've always had a lot of distress around my face. Like just like being a mixed race person, like my face doesn't always look how people expect. And I've received a lot of comments. Like growing up, people would call me the flat-nosed girl or the smush face girl. Because my face is very flat because I'm Asian. And like, I think just how much of people have been like, oh, Aloy's cheeks are too full or her face looks mannish. It's like, and she's gorgeous and no one cares. And I relate to that kind of critique. Like it just hit. And so I really identified a lot with this protagonist. The game also fucks.
Lots of things fuck today.
Yeah, lots of things fuck today.
We'll add HCD to the list.
And it's never really been confirmed, but Aloy gives very, very many queer vibes off. So she's very much been adopted by the queer community. So like, I don't know, maybe in Forbidden West we'll get to see some of that in action. But she just gives a lot of butch energy that I do so love.
Yeah, she also like I don't know. There's a few different characters in the game that feel to specifically men characters in the game that seem like they're trying to come onto her, and she's just completely like there's no interest from her at all. And also in like a very like, really, that's what you're thinking about now? Yeah. All this shit's going on and like there's shit to do. It's like she just is I'm busy. I'm busy. No, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like, and yeah, really like oblivious to any sort of flattery or anything that they might be trying to level at her. But like there's definitely like two characters I can think of in the game that I definitely got the sense that they were trying to like hit on her a bit, and she's just not oblivious to it, but not even like acknowledging of it. Just not even like, oh, thank you, that's very kind. I'm not interested. Like she just ignores it completely. Yeah,
that's the kind of energy I need to bring more of into my life.
Yeah.
But Jamie, tell us about Transistor.
Well, yeah, just like, you know, thank you for sharing all of that about Horizon. No, you don't need to do anything. I just, it was a special game to me too, but it's always cool to hear other people talk about what made a game special to them. Yeah. Transistor is a game that came out in May 2014. That's what we talk about here. Newsflash, this is a gaming podcast, so we're going to talk about games, guys. It came out in May 2014. I played it on PlayStation. It was one of the first handful of games that I remember getting on my PlayStation 4. It's a game made by Supergiant, which if folks are regular listeners of Pixel Therapy, we talk about Supergiant pretty regularly. They are a developer that has made Bastion, Transistor, Pyre, and Hades. And we've talked about Hades quite a lot.
The bane of Jamie's existence. And now a boon.
Now a boon.
Get it? Just because there's boons? Okay.
Yeah. No, I got it. Now a boon. So Supergiant is now, at this time, my favorite developer I love all of their games very dearly. I love their games for a lot of reasons. I love the world building that they create. I love the way they write and tell stories and the stories that they choose to tell. I love their art. That is definitely the first thing that always grabs me with the Supergiant game. Gen Z, their official title is artist. Yeah, that makes sense. Gen Z, their artist, is amazing, and her artwork is amazing, and I have a bunch of it hanging on the walls of my home. They have great music made by Darren Korb, and then I think when the No Clip documentary it was a documentary series when they started making that about Hades and about Supergiant. I learned a lot of information about how this was basically like a group of friends who decided they wanted to start making games together and then just did that, and they have continued, and it's still a studio. I don't know. It's just, they're a really unique game development company, I think, and the games that they make are super special. But the reason I want to talk about Transistor is the influence that Transistor had on my life is that it's the first Supergiant game that I played. It's also the first game that I chose to platinum intentionally. Not the first platinum I ever got, because I used to play a lot of the Telltale games, Walking Dead, A Wolf Among Us. Anyone who's played those games might know that you can't help but platinum them. They essentially, you get trophies for each section of each chapter. They're episodic games, and so just by the nature of completing the game, you get the platinum trophy. I never really thought anything about it, but Transistor is the first game that I opened up the trophy list and was like, I want to achieve this. This seems like an interesting thing to do, and I want to see everything this game has to offer. So this game, the impact that Transistor had on me is that it both shifted the way I thought about how I played games by making me a bit of a trophy hunter, making me think about how getting platinums could expand the amount of the game that I saw and shift what I felt I was accomplishing, quote unquote, by playing games, for better or worse. But it also was my entry point to this amazing developer that I've continued to follow closely throughout my life. So a little bit about Transistor and what exactly it is. It is a third-person isometric game. It's action-adventure RPG. It can be played as both a real-time strategy game and as a sort of turn-based strategy game. So the game has a mechanic within it where you could just hack and slash. You could just run up to enemies in combat and fight them directly without pausing the game or anything. But you also have the ability to pause time and plan out your moves against the enemies. And the game kind of encourages you to use both of those or choose. There's a lot of flexibility in combat. It wasn't the combat, though, about the game specifically that drew me in. Like I said, the artwork was incredibly impressive. The soundtrack was incredibly impressive as I was playing it. But what really grabbed me was not just the narrative, but how they doled the narrative out. I think a lot of the games that I had experienced playing before Transistor, I mean, at this point I had played Mass Effect, I had played Skyrim, I'd played a bunch of the Uncharted games. I knew that I liked narrative in games, but there's really specific ways that those types of games give you narrative, right? It's cutscenes, it's moments of dialogue. There's a formula for how a narrative is delivered in a game, right? Transistor's main character, Red. So yeah, a little bit about the story. Red is a singer before the game starts. She's a singer at a nightclub in this city called Cloudbank. And Cloudbank is a virtual city. They don't really ever quite explain what this means, but essentially the city it's not real. Everything's kind of talked about as though it exists within a computer. And again, they don't ever nail down exactly how that is, what that means, or what the relationship is to the real world. That's the world they've created. The city that essentially exists within a computer space, within a digital space, the virtual city of Cloudbank. Red is a singer before the game starts, At the very beginning of the game, her and her bodyguard, who you come to learn is also her partner, someone that she's romantically involved with, they're attacked. He's killed, and she's left with this sword called the Transistor that has absorbed the essence of her partner and is now speaking with his voice.
So sad.
It is really sad, right? In the process, though, the Transistor also absorbs her voice, so she doesn't have a voice. Throughout the game, the main character that you hear speaking is her partner, the Transistor, the sword. You quickly start to realize that the city is being attacked by these robots called the Process that are reforming the city. And as you start to unravel the mystery behind this, you learn that basically a group of powerful influencers living within Cloudbank didn't like the way that the city was changing outside of their control. Because this exists in this virtual space, the city was open to creativity and change, and things could shift. So in their efforts to try to control the way things are being shifted, they discovered this entity called the Process, which would allow them to edit the city in their image or by their desires. So they start trying to control the Process and start kidnapping influential people throughout the city to continue to control things and make edits with the Process. But in the process of trying to capture Red and losing the Transistor, they also lose control of the Process, and the Process begins to destroy the city without their control and also destroy them. And so the entire city is being gobbled up by these robots. The folks who started this whole thing are being destroyed too, and Red is kind of the only person who can stop it. But her motivations are simply to try to save this person that she loves and survive. So that's kind of the narrative setup. In preparing for this conversation, I was trying to, I'd never looked at like reviews of Transistor or anything like that. So I was kind of like Googling to see like what people on the internet had been saying about Transistor. And by and large, like people don't talk about the story of Transistor. All the reviews are about the combat, because the combat was really interesting in the way it let you choose if you wanted to pause time and plan out your moves, or if you wanted to fight in real time. And then there's all of these different functions that you can slot into the sword that shift up the way the sword functions and the way you fight. All really varied. Not too dissimilar from the way Hades like uses the boons and you apply all those different things to the way you fight, and you have the different weapons. Like a lot of that is DNA from Transistor in terms of that variety. And so that got a lot of notoriety in terms of the reviews. That's what a lot of the conversation around Transistor was about, because this narrative is like so vague. But in reading through things, I stumbled across just this like offhanded remark from someone who was saying like, Supergiant is really interested in endings, in the endings of things. And I don't know if this carries through to Hades. I haven't thought about it enough. But when I think about Bastion, which is basically set at the end of the world, Transistor, this virtual city that's being deconstructed by the Process, and Pyre, which is set in the afterlife, but you're fighting your way out of the afterlife in a certain regard, which I guess is what you're doing in Hades too. I don't know. There's a theme here, right? That they're really interested at the way things end in transition. And I think that holds true for Transistor as well. You're in a dying city. The city is dying around you, and yet Red is still fighting for this person that she loves. And there was just something that was really powerful in that to me. And for all of the vagueness that the overall plot provides you, you do end up getting a lot of detail about the characters, but the way they dole that out is incredibly fascinating to me and remains so to this day. Because again, like I said, they tell this narrative in a unique way, right? So you're given that little bit of information about Red at the beginning through this cutscene. Most of the information that you get about the world from that point on is given to you on pages within the menu where you unlock additional information about characters, about enemies, about what's happening in the world by encountering those things. So even the functions and stuff that you put on your sword, the powers that you get, as you use them, you then learn more information about them. And you can actually, again, you can see this DNA carry through to Hades, right? Like you unlock more information about the different Olympian gods, about the different chthonic gods by interacting with them. And then in your like journal more information will unlock and you'll get more information. Now, Hades has a lot of dialogue that fills that in, but in Transistor, like that journal is because that's like Red's interior. You're not hearing her talk. Her voice is gone. So you just have the journal space of the menu to learn more about the characters. And I don't know, something about the way the game encouraged you to continue playing it, to continue fighting, to continue engaging with other characters in order to learn more about them. And that was how you slowly unlocked the narrative, really resonated for me and was completely different than anything I'd really experienced in a game before. And really pulled me into the world that Supergiant was building. And because I wanted to continue to unlock that information in the way they were doling it out, I opened up that platinum list and was like, okay, how can I make sure I see everything this game has to offer? And so I went through and I got the platinums, and like one of the trophies was around, like you had to replay the entire game and like turn on all of these, they're called limiters in the game, but they basically are settings that make the game more challenging.
Damn.
And I played through it and I learned how to like fight in a way that still made it feasible. And I don't know. It's the first time I've challenged myself like that with a game. It was the first time I played a game that shared its story in this way. And it just really changed the way that it opened my mind to what games could do and how a game could tell a story. Like a game, I think before that point, I thought that games had to kind of borrow from film and tell stories in these very cinematic ways. And this was a game telling a story in the way that only a game can. You couldn't tell the story of you couldn't just directly translate that to a movie. Or a book, because of the way they were asking you to engage and open up more information about things. So,
totally,
yeah. Transistor is the game that like really made me a gamer instead of someone who just wanted to interact with, like play an interactive movie. If that makes sense.
Totally. That resonates so much, and it makes me think about how, like, I feel like Supergiant, in an age where guides and let's plays and, you know, in-depth walkthroughs are all just a click or a tap away, I feel like they still manage to make game worlds that feel mysterious, or like they're still holding secrets. And it does make you want to just keep playing in a way. And because of all that's put into it, you almost like don't want to spoil yourself and just read it. Like you want that feeling of uncovering it within the game.
Yeah.
And so that's just like a really special quality that I feel like they really retain as a through line in all of their titles. I especially feel it in Hades. Like, and I do feel like that interest in endings is something that also resonates in all of their titles. But I won't say more about that right now.
Yeah, I haven't fully finished the story of Hades, so there's probably more to learn there. But
thank you so much for sharing that. Oh my gosh.
Of course. And thank you for sharing about Horizon. I guess I'm not sure quite how to transition into the end of the episode because we've never interviewed ourselves before. We can't exactly just thank each other for being on and say goodbye. But I don't know. I guess I'll finish by saying one more time because I can't say it enough. Just thank you, everyone. That has made that. Thank you, Spencer. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, guests. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, our partners who have dealt with us locking ourselves in a room every weekend for
and
hours
our cats
on end.
And dogs who are sad.
Just thank you to everyone who's made this past year of doing this podcast possible. And here's to another one. All right, time is up for today's session of Pixel Therapy. Thank you for tuning in, and we truly hope that listening to our thoughts and feelings has given you some thoughts and feelings of your own. If you want more Pixel Therapy, come check us out at patreon.com/pixeltherapypod, where you can snag that monthly bonus episode for just $2 a month, plus have opportunities to get involved with the community and influence the show directly. If you're not up for contributing monetarily, but you enjoyed this episode, you can show your support for free by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts and following us on Instagram at Pixel Therapy Pod. That stuff is just as important, and we appreciate it just as much. Remember that Pixel Therapy is a happy member of the But Why Though podcast network, so you can support us by supporting them and heading over to butwhythoughpodcast.com. That's though with a THO. Take a peek at the inclusive geek community they are building around pop culture news, reviews, and kick-ass podcasts like yours truly. And you can keep up with all of this stuff and more by visiting our website at pixeltherapypod.com.
Finally, since we like to put our money and our energy where our mouth is, we end every episode with a recommended side quest. This week, I am super excited to talk to you all about the Buckle Bunnies Fund. So the Buckle Bunnies were originally founded in April of 2020 when Texas, the state here in the U.S., temporarily banned abortions at the beginning of the COVID-19 crisis. A group of young queer folks who were passionate about reproductive justice knew that they had the power to mobilize across Texas and help people get the abortions they needed. After seeing the momentum that they started, they knew they needed to make themselves a permanent fixture in abortion funding. Their work is done by unpaid volunteers who are dedicated to the autonomy of abortion seekers, not just in Texas, but everywhere. They are explicitly pro-abortion and believe that abortion is freedom, with absolutely no shame or stigma allowed, and will continue to, in their words, harness our beautiful rage into our work until every person everywhere is able to access abortion freely, safely, and on demand. I was reading an article about this organization because it was founded by a 21-year-old, a sex worker named Michaela Montoya Frazier. And in the article, she was talking about the Buckle Bunnies, and she says, during the pandemic, our work with the Buckle Bunnies Fund has been nonstop because people perpetually need large amounts of money to access abortion, especially now because they're unemployed or their unemployment ran out. The way the fund works is that people can fill out the form on our site, but sometimes they also message us on Twitter or Instagram and tell us that they need an abortion. We see them through the process until the very end, and then we do follow-up calls and provide aftercare kits. Sometimes the relationship goes on for weeks or months. We help some people multiple times. There is no judgment in this, and we are in it with them for the long haul. Sometimes that means bringing people dinner, driving them to the clinic, or giving them money for a hotel. So I just think it's an incredible organization, incredible effort by a young person, a young queer person who's mobilized across the state. Abortion is banned in Texas right now, and it's very scary for anyone who is pregnant or has the possibility of becoming pregnant. To learn more about this really awesome grassroots organization and to donate, visit bucklebunnies.org.
Thank you for that side quest, Spencer. That is our show for today. That is our show for our 1-year anniversary.
Woo-hoo!
So everybody, go forth, run a story mission, level up some stats, and don't forget to hug an NPC every now and then. We will be back so soon with some more
Pixel Therapy.
Woohoo!